It is the orange one. I have to go get a Q-tip because I'm blurry. I have my book. I have my glass. I have my fancy hairdo. Oh, I need more water. And gosh, I completely forgot what I was gonna do. Oh yeah, get a Q-tip and more water. And then maybe some people will come along. It's Saturday, so probably not, but I don't care. That's fine. I'm gonna go get a Q-tip and some water. Oh wait, can you see the TV? Okay. Can you see the TV? Maybe I have you to see my television. Okay, I want you to see the TV. I really wish I could just turn this around and have the nice background for you, but beggars can't be choosers. Okay, where is the... I can't see. I'm blind. I'm blind. I'm blind, I'm blind, I'm blind. Pardonnez-moi. I don't know why it would be like dirty and stuff. How's that? Hello? Hello? This could be our game for when I'm live. What's on the television? What's on the TV? It's on mute. Wait, maybe you can see it? I don't know. Is it better with the lamp on or the lamp off? I don't know. Water. Obviously, I wasn't prepared as I thought I was. I'll leave my Q-tip in case it gets blurry again. My arm is really bugging me. Like it's got a... something isn't right. Damn. I mean, darn. This is some heavy water. Oh, man. My pineapple slices, I keep forgetting about them. I have pineapple slices in a bowl. I keep forgetting to eat them. They'll only last so long out of the can. Hello, Ed Grimley. What? Who's that? I'm not Ed Grimley. That sounds familiar, that name. Ed Grimley. You're going to make me Google things. Let's see. Ed. Find out who this is. Isn't that the... Oh, Martin Short. Right. I didn't have to Google it. It came to me. Yes. Yes. Ed Grimley. Wait a minute. Doesn't he wear funny... He always wears the same clothes. Maybe I could be Ed Grimley. I don't have any clothes that look like that. I don't even have pants. I have one pair of jeans. Oh, yeah. He wears his pants like Urkel. Ed... Wonderful. Yes, Ed Grimley. I forget how he talks and everything, but like there's nothing in this. It's just it's gravity? Lack of gravity? I don't know. I ain't no scientician. Hello, two people. Ed Grimley. I thought of it as I was typing it in. I thought Ed Grimley. That's that guy, Martin Short. Yeah. Okay. Oh, as you know, it went all weird again. I've been reading this little book, A Fragrant Minute for Every Day by Wilhelmina Stitch. I missed yesterday. Yesterday was supposed to be day 7, but I've recorded it and it will be up later in the evening. 7th day. It's called To a House at Night. Can you hear me okay? My microphone's over here. Oh man, it's heavy. Everything's heavy. But I thought we would continue to read. I need some tape. Put it like right here. We would continue to read The Clue of the Leaning Chimney. Something happened at the end. Something usually does happen at the end. Oh yeah, the vase. It's Helen Corning's birthday party. She goes to their house. Nancy goes to their house. She sees a cool vase, and it's the same. It's like connected with the mystery, of course. And then her handbag seems to have vanished, and everyone's looking for it. And then Helen Corning's mom finds it. And then she goes back in to call the police or something. And the vase is gone. Maybe I'll see if a few more people come along. I'm going to check to see how many pages this is. Oh my God, it keeps going. It's a pretty long chapter. But we're going to read it. Oh, yes, we are. Anyone else there? What's on TV? What do you think is on the TV? It's not Ed Grimley. It's not SCTV. Funny. Was that SCTV? Or was that SNL? I don't remember. I think it's SCTV, right? Ed Grimley. Well, I guess we better get started because it's been 7 minutes. Okay. Everything's good? Everyone can hear me? Everything's okay? Okay. Excuse me. I need a little more light. Everything's good? Oh, he was on both. Okay. Woo! Orange. I'm trying to figure out the Roman numerals. I'm like, VII. Make a note of the time. 7:30. Chapter 7. 3 on a Clue. Nancy stared in dismay at the vacant spot on the desk. Then she ran into the kitchen, snapped on the backyard light, and dashed outside. Nobody was there. By then, Mr. and Mrs. Townsend and the girls had caught up to her. "What's the matter now, Nancy?" asked Mr. Townsend. Wait a minute, who's Townsend? Who's Mr. Townsend? I thought it was Helen's parents. Shouldn't they be named Corning? Whatever. "What's the matter now, Nancy?" asked Mr. Townsend. As she told them about the stolen vase, Nancy experienced a sudden twinge of guilt. If the thief had not observed her copying the symbols on the bottom, he might never have stolen the vase. But why was her copy of the symbols so important to him? Suddenly, Nancy thought she knew. She ran to the side of the house, fully expecting to see the same identifying footprints she had spotted at Hunter's Bridge. Prints she believed were Manning's, but she was disappointed. These marks were short and wide. When she told Bess and George the idea she had had about the footprints, George was inclined to think the thief was some pal of Manning's. He's probably one of those men in the woods, she added. Focus. Okay, George says, he's probably one of those men in the woods, she added. And has been told to trail you, Nancy, Bess said fearfully. Hypers, said George. This puts such a damper on everything. The other girls murmured in agreement. The Townsends insisted upon hearing about the case. Oh, I forgot that Bess and George were at the birthday party. The other girls murmured in agreement. The Townsends insisted upon hearing about the case. Nancy told what she deemed necessary. Then Mr. Townsend went to telephone the police. 2 officers arrived, made a routine check indoors and out, then queried Nancy. After they had gone, a thought suddenly flashed through Nancy's mind. She went to the desk and picked up the small blotter she had used to dry the ink on her notation of the Chinese characters. They were clearly reproduced in reverse. Clever. I'll take this home and compare the symbols with those on the paper there, she decided. Nancy slipped the blotter into her bag. Wait a minute. Isn't a blotter like humongous? Apparently not this one. Or she has a huge Mary Poppins bag. Nancy slipped the blotter into her bag and turned back to speak to Mr. Townsend. Where did you buy the vase? Why, let me see, he replied, reaching into his inside coat pocket. I think I have the name of the shop right here in my wallet. Yes, here it is. Sen Young's Oriental Gift Shop, Madison Avenue, New York. Is Aunt Eloise in this one? Are we going to New York? Nancy made a mental note of the name. Mr. Drew arrived shortly to take the girls home. Upon hearing of the theft and the possibility that Nancy had been spied upon, he was glad he had escorted the girls to the party and back. Nancy, Bess, and George thanked their hostess for the lovely party, then left. When the Drews reached home, they sat down for a few minutes to discuss the strange turn of events. Nancy took the blotter from her bag and handed it to her father. Then she went to her room to get a hand mirror and the sheet of paper containing the Chinese symbols found in Manning's room. Holding the blotter up to the mirror, she saw at a glance that the writing was the same as one set of characters on the sheet. It read, "Made for the Hall of Fragrant Virtue." Nancy was thrilled at the new clue, but she was still puzzled over the thief's motive for stealing her copy of the symbols. I'm puzzled also. In the morning, Nancy telephoned the Townsends to say again how lovely the birthday party had been and to ask if there was any news of the thief. Was this Helen Corning's birthday? Who was this Helen person? Not a speck, Helen replied. Say, Nancy, maybe you could find the thief for us. Another mystery? Nancy is just a girl, not a super sleuth. Well, maybe she's both. If I get any clues, I'll let you know, Nancy promised and hung up. Since she could think of no way at the moment to trace the thief, Nancy decided to concentrate on finding the China clay pit. She went to the River Heights Public Library to scan books on local geology. Scan with her eyes, not with a machine. But after poring over several volumes and maps, Nancy had found nothing. She closed the books with a sigh and put them back on the shelf. Miss Carter, the librarian, had noticed Nancy's disappointed expression. Couldn't you find what you were looking for? She inquired pleasantly. Nancy shook her head and told the librarian the nature of her quest. Why don't you ask Miles Monroe? Miss Carter suggested. He's a retired professor of geology. If anyone knows of a clay deposit, he should. I'll give you his address. Thanks, Miss Carter. Mr. Carter. Thank you, Nancy said, smiling. I'll go to see him at once. The geologist lived in a small apartment. She pushed the buzzer under Miles Monroe's name card, and in a moment a small peephole flew open. An eye stared at Nancy. If you're selling something, boomed a voice. I don't want any of it. Nancy stifled a laugh. I'm not a saleswoman. I came to see you about a geology problem. The eye stared a moment longer. Then the peephole snapped shut and the door flew open. A man stood in the doorway, looking Nancy up and down. He was tall and slightly stooped-shouldered, with a sharp, inquisitive face and a thatch of bristling red hair. Geology problem, he snorted. You're too pretty for such heavy thoughts. But come in. As Nancy followed the professor into the living room, she noticed that he walked with a limp. Have a chair, he said. Mr. Monroe seated himself, looking straight at Nancy. Well, young lady, he asked, what's on your mind? Hello, Lee. After Nancy introduced herself, she told of her search for a deposit of china clay. Monroe said he knew of none in the state. I've heard, Nancy went on, that it may be identified in some way with a leaning chimney. Miles Monroe scoffed. First time I ever heard of using a chimney to find a vein of kaolin. I don't remember how to say that word. Do you? Should we look it up? I want to say things properly. So we'll look up kaolin. Kaolin. Is it like lanolin? Kaolin or china clay. How do you say it though? Kaolin.
Kaolin.
Kaolin. Okay, we're going to call it kaolin. Kaolin. First time I ever heard of using a chimney to find a vein of kaolin. Kaolin? Repeated Nancy. The professor replied, that's what geologists call the fine white clay used in the manufacture of china and porcelain. The name comes from the Chinese kaoling. It's a mountain in China which yielded the first kaolin. Nancy eagerly absorbed this new knowledge as Miles Monroe added, kaolin is formed by the weathering of granite and other rocks. He's supposed to have a booming voice. That's the best I can boom, y'all. I was going to say something and then I forgot. How does she remember all of this? Does Nancy have a photographic memory? Because she's not right. Maybe she's writing it down and we just don't know. Then the clay is washed free of the quartz and mixed with feldspar, flint, and so forth to make porcelain. He smiled wryly. You may as well know what it's all about if you're looking for the stuff. Of course, Nancy agreed. But I had hoped you'd be able to tell me about a pit of china clay in this region. It's supposed to be near Masonville. Professor Monroe rubbed his nose. Don't know much about the land around Masonville, he replied. Had to give up my field trips when I injured my leg in a fall 6 years ago. That's when I retired. Before that, I lived in Philadelphia. Well, I'm sorry to have bothered you, Nancy said, rising. Say, wait a minute, Miles Monroe burst out suddenly. There's one section I had an interest in and was always going to get to. It's a stretch of woods several miles out of River Heights toward Masonville. He gave her directions for reaching it. There's an abandoned Civil War iron mine and smelter out there, I was told. It may have a leaning chimney. If you find a china clay pit, I would like to know about it. Nancy thanked him for the information. She was glad to have the lead, slim as it was. Professor Monroe walked to the door with her, and she went down to her car. Then she drove to George's home. Whew. Oh, yeah, I don't have a bookmark. Wait, I'm going to go get a bookmark because I have a bunch of bookmarks. Has anyone figured out what's on the television? I will give you a hint. It's from the 1930s. It's from the late 1930s. Already I've forgotten what I was getting. Oh, yeah, bookmark. Ed Grimley. Wait a minute. I could put my skirt way up. How do I look more like Ed Grimley? Wait. Oh, come on. Stick up, you jerk. Oh. This chair is Oh, come up here, chair. I'm pretty sure there's like a hill on my floor. You know, it's not flat because I'm going up a hill trying to move my chair here. So, okay, who is this Miles Monroe? He's a professor of geology or something. He knows about clay, kaolin, kaoling, the ungs. I'm sure there's some other words I forgot about. Yeah, I can wear my skirt like that. It's a skirt that I wear sometimes as a dress. It's like long, and I just go whoop, and I pull it up because it's long. Now, where was I? Oh, yeah. She stopped at George's. Her friend was mowing the front lawn. Seated on the ground was Bess, clipping a hedge. I love that she's sitting on the ground doing it. She's so me. Nancy tooted her horn. The two girls looked up and ran to the car. I'm going for a short drive in the country. Ooh, I love it when they do this. Just got a new lead on the leaning chimney, Nancy told them. Want to come along? Bess eyed her friend suspiciously. What do we have to do? She asked. What difference does it make as long as it's fun? Scoffed George. She slid into the seat beside Nancy. Okay, I'll go tell your mother where we're going, George. Bess returned in a moment and hopped into the convertible. Nancy headed for Three Bridges Road. Oh my God, is it a road that has 3 bridges? I mean, what else could it be, right? Oh my goodness, Bess exclaimed as they neared Hunter's Bridge. This awful place again. But this time we're not stopping, Nancy reassured her, and Bess sighed in relief. Shortly after crossing Hunter's Bridge, they came to a narrow gravel road which veered to the right. Nancy turned the car onto it. After traveling about 8 miles from River Heights, she pulled up under a tree and stopped. The 3 girls got out and started through the woods to search for the abandoned mine. It was getting so exciting, right? They walked for nearly an hour. Oh my gosh, Beth's gonna be getting hungry. She's gonna eat the china clay. They walked for nearly an hour among trees and through stony pastures, climbing old rotted fences and slapping at insects. Bess's enthusiasm began to wane. I'm tired, she moaned. Let's go back. I'll bet Professor Monroe doesn't know what he's talking about. Even George and Nancy wondered whether the old mine really existed. Just a little farther, Nancy urged. We'll be in the next state, joked George. But I'm willing. The 3 trudged on when suddenly a barrier loomed up ahead. It was a high board fence topped by strands of rusty barbed wire. The 3 girls stopped and stared in amazement. Why would anyone put up such a thing in this wilderness? Bess asked. The girls inspected the fence closely. It was about 10 feet high. The boards adjoined one another so snugly that only the narrowest of cracks appeared between them. Nancy tried to peer through one to see what lay on the other side, but she could make out nothing. Hypers! 2 hypers in one chapter. Hypers! Exclaimed George. The fence must be 500 feet long. Come on, Nancy urged. Let's try to find an opening we can see through. The girls walked along the fence, their eyes probing for a gate or a wide crack. Can you believe that George says hypers twice? Yep. I was just checking to make sure it wasn't in the chapter before. Here's the end of the fence, announced Nancy, who was in the lead. Indeed, it looked Indeed, it looked like the end, but it was only the end of one side. The board barrier turned sharply at a right angle and continued another 250 feet. When the girls arrived at the middle of the second stretch of fence, Nancy's alert eye spotted a small knothole. "At last!" she exclaimed. Stepping up eagerly, she closed one eye and peeked through the hole with the other. At first, she was unable to see much of a growth. At first, she was unable to see much because of a growth of trees and bushes. Then, shifting her gaze, Nancy saw an old, battered brick wall running parallel to the fence, a short distance back from it. The wall was about 8 feet high and was topped by a sloping roof. Obviously, it was part of a building, but within the range of her vision, Nancy could see no windows. "Find anything?" George asked impatiently. "Only an old—" Nancy stopped speaking as she caught sight of something jutting from the roof of the building. Then she cried excitedly, "Girls, it's a leaning chimney!" End of chapter 7. Boop, boop. This is where we are, right? Wait, did she just climb a tree? Did she climb a tree? Apparently, I'm not paying any attention. She closed one eye. Oh no, we're not there yet. She's looking through a knothole. So maybe the next chapter she's going to climb that tree. What do you think? How long does it take from not very long. I need a bigger nose, apparently. Jimmy Durante? Hey, I gotta check out my moon phases. New moon on Monday. What's your favorite Duran Duran song? Mine's New Moon on Monday. What a great song. I also like Lonely in Your Nightmare, American Silence. I was going to say Silence. Yeah, they won't stay up. There's a Steve Martin movie. I think it's The Jerk, where he invents something. And it makes your glasses stay up and makes a lot of money. I think that's The Jerk. I don't know. Something with Steve Martin. Oh my gosh. Do you know what the next chapter is called? Wait, let's find out when is the next picture. Oh, there's a picture coming up. Not in this chapter. Ooh, Mr. Sen Young. Whoops, no spoilers. The next chapter, chapter 8, is Mystery in Manhattan. Ooh, maybe they're going to stay with Aunt Eloise. Do you think? That would be real fun. Yeah, I'm real sore. I gotta remember to stretch and do things. Hey, guess who's still hanging out in a boat? He's like, "I'm getting sick of boating. I'm getting seasick. We're getting a little seasick. Here we are. It's Perino, the pocket mouse. Won't you please help me get out of this boat? I'm real sick of rowing." And my little friend who holds the needle. Perino, the pocket mouse, wants you to... I don't know. I can't think of a song. He's so cute. Oh man. There you go, Perino. And untitled hedgehog. Hey, my skirt's still way up here. Yeah. Oh, Lee Davis thinks you're adorable. Well, I think she's talking to both of you. Okay. Gosh. Let's see how long Mystery in Manhattan is. Manhattan Murder Mystery. Oh yeah, that's a Woody Allen movie. I think I enjoyed that movie and watched it a few times. And I think I might watch it again. Yeah, oh my gosh, I love Duran Duran. when I was really little, they were one of my favorites. And then I don't really listen to their new stuff. I don't listen to anything new. But yes, Simon Le Bon has one of the most beautiful voices ever. I like it when it's kind of like icy sounding. He has an icy voice at times. I like his icy voice. That's the only way I can describe it at some points. Icy. Well, thank you, Heidi. Nobody's a stranger on the internet, right? You say, I know that I'm a stranger. Well, I am too. So we have something in common. We're both strangers. Yeah, I think I became a grumpy old man around 1995, I would say. That's when well, I've always liked older stuff, but I do remember when I was a kid, in the 80s and early 90s, I liked things that were current. I was into current stuff as well as older things. But it was around that time that everything, according to me, just was not cool anymore. And I didn't enjoy it. Or not that it's cool. Like, I don't care if anything is trendy or cool as long as I like it, you know? Like, my hair is pretty cool. I would never voluntarily have hair this short, but I'm doing what I can with it, you know? I'm making it work for me. Now, oh, I've only been on 32 minutes. We could read another one. Now, is my voice, is the sound of the reading loud enough? Because I always feel like I talk quite. I have to put in some I'm not reading at a comfortable volume for me. I feel like I'm kind of trying to project, but it's hard on me. It's hard on my insides or whatever. So let me try reading like this. Here's the end of the fence. I feel like I have to talk over my ceiling fan. Here's the end of the fence, announced Nancy, who was in the lead. Indeed, it looked like the end. Like this? When the girls arrived at the middle of the second stretch of fence, that's more comfortable for, I don't know, like maybe my I have to see my doctor, my family doctor, and I'm gonna ask if I can get tested for asthma, or like, can they do a test to see how much my lung capacity? Because even when since as long as I can remember, I've always had trouble getting enough breath. I don't think I have asthma or anything like that. But I do have some small parts, and I'm like, maybe my lungs are tiny or something. I know that I have like a small throat, and my ear things are small, like all the canals and junk. Oh Lord, I don't want anyone going up my nose. I mean, make me do that horrid stick up the nose test, but we're not going to go there. Well, we won't go there. But yeah, I don't want anyone going in my ears, my mouth. Well, nowhere really, nowhere. Like I'm not stuffed up or anything, but I have trouble getting enough breath. But let us begin, because I really want to find out if the girls are going to New York City. Mystery in Manhattan, obviously. That's right. Well, I always had ear problems, mostly in this one. This is my bad ear. This is my good ear. But I've had issues with both of them. When I was little, I had tubes in my ear, and I went to a doctor who was an ear, nose, and throat specialist. Yes, Dr. Mendelson. And he wore one of those creepy silver discs, you know? What are those things for? I don't even know what they're for, but that's the only thing I remember about him is he wore one of those things. And I was like, oh God, please don't hurt me with your scary silver disc. Anyway, let's get back to this because I want to see what's going to happen. Chapter 8 Mystery in Manhattan. Let me see, George exclaimed excitedly. Nancy stepped aside so the dark-haired girl could look through the knothole. I was going to say keyhole. And also, I'm going to bring my Cheesaloo. Do I need like 10 men to lift this thing? Hello? Hello? How's that? Does that change the sound a little? I took my little windbreaker thing off. My little microphone guard thingy. And I brought it closer. Does that sound different? Let me see, George exclaimed excitedly. Nancy stepped aside. Let's start the whole thing over again. Chapter 8 Mystery in Manhattan. Let me see, George exclaimed excitedly. Nancy stepped aside so the dark-haired girl could look through the knothole. Maybe it's the abandoned iron mine and smelter, put in Bess. There are so many trees, it's hard to see just what's inside, George said. If this is the leaning chimney we're looking for, Nancy reasoned, the china clay pit must be somewhere nearby, possibly inside the fence. Let's go, she suggested, starting along the enclosure. There must be an opening somewhere. Excuse me, a pigeon flew by. I hear you, Mr. Pidgey. You lose, retorted George as the trio rounded the edge of the fence. No opening was in sight. Instead, the unbroken expanse of boards extended another 500 feet. When the girls reached the end of this, the fence took another right-angle turn. This time it stretched 250 feet. Sounds like some kind of maze fence. Lee Davis, you have retracted your message. What did you say? I don't have my moderator in here. This is a crazy fence. Bess groaned. Oh, I'm so tired and hungry. Perhaps, teased George, there's a baseball park inside. If there is, we'll stop at the Frankfurter stand. Think we'll need a helicopter to get inside, Nancy joked, examining the boards closely. These planks are certainly fitted tight together. As they walked on, she kept turning over in her mind several things that mystified her. The air of secrecy about the enclosure, the seeming lack of doors, and the apparent lack of activity. Ooh, I wonder if there's some dogs on the other side. Oh, silly emojis. Or emoticons. They used to be called emoticons. I guess it takes too long to say that. Emoticon. 4 syllables. That's unacceptable. Oh, I hate it when people do that, and I just did it. They take a sip and they go, ah. Bad. Since we can't get in, Nancy said, I'm going to try looking inside to see if I can spot any clay pit. Making her way to a nearby tree, here we go, she shinned up to the first branch, then swung herself into the crotch of the tree. Find anything? George asked. I can't see much better from here, Nancy reported. Too many trees inside. Yep, looks like a lot of trees. They're pretty trees, too. Yeah, I remember liking this place the first time I read this book. I like this place that they've just come to. I enjoyed the descriptions of it and whatnot. Suddenly, she was struck by something near the top of the leaning chimney. It was a rusted iron ornament fastened to the bricks. What does it look like? Asked George when Nancy reported her discovery. A lot of crisscross bars, Nancy replied. Maybe the coat of arms of the old mine owner. Owner. As she climbed down, Bess called from a distance, where she was standing on a little knoll. I've got a good view of it from here. George started for the spot when suddenly Bess let out a terrifying scream. Her two friends ran toward her. When they reached the knoll, Bess was trembling with fear. What happened? Nancy demanded. Oh, Nancy, Bess said, pointing. I saw a bony hand reach out of the chimney. Nancy and George looked. There was no sign of a hand. Bess said she had closed her eyes a moment to shut out the weird sight. When she had opened them again, the hand was gone. I think you're goofy, George scoffed. A person sees things when he gets tired. I'm not that tired, Bess retorted. I saw it. I know I did. In panic, she dashed through the woods toward Nancy's car. There was nothing for the other girls to do but follow her. Now, did Bess really see a bony hand? Or is this just her ploy to leave and go get dinner? What do we think? What do you think? Honestly, it could be either one. Bess is pretty honest, though, but she's also very hungry. You think she made it up, Maggie? I don't know. It just came to me. Maybe she did. Nancy started the motor. Owner. Motor. Nancy started the motor. Soon they were a good distance from the eerie spot. I never want to go there again, Bess declared. Not even to help your cousin Dick? Nancy asked with a grin. Bess finally conceded maybe she would get over her fright, and she did want Dick to acquire the special clay if possible. After Nancy drove the girls to their homes, she decided to drop into Dick's shop and tell him of her latest discovery. She found a high school boy who clerked for the young pottery maker after school behind the counter. Would you like something, miss? He asked. I'd like to see Mr. Milton. He's busy in the back of the shop right now, the boy answered, but he'll be through in a minute. Will you wait? Nancy smiled. He's a friend of mine, she said. I'll go back and see him. Well, okay then. In the rear room, Dick was engrossed at the potter's wheel, his sandy hair tumbling over his forehead. He was so busy he did not notice his collar. Is he going to do something he shouldn't? Nancy watched while Dick deftly pressed a lump of clay on the center of the wheel, then allowed it to rise between his fingers in a spiral column before depressing it. Unchained Melody. Why did that song just come into my head? I don't know. Once more, the column spiraled. The young man again pushed it down, at the same time centering and truing the clay. Do we know this word? Truing? We must look up words. I've learned quite a few words from Nancy Drew books. Truing. Truing, the alignment and cutting of a wheel, especially a grinding wheel, such that its surface is concentric with its axis. Well, that clears it right up. I must say. Wait a minute. Isn't that what Ed Grimley says? I must say. It is, isn't it? I'm really becoming Ed Grimley. Okay. The young man pushed it down, truing the clay. Then he pressed his thumbs into the soft clay, rapidly forming a cylinder. With one hand inside, I'm getting sick of being a potter. With one hand inside the cylinder and the other outside, Dick molded the clay into the thickness he desired. Nancy now saw the cylinder shape like magic into a large jar. Dick snapped off a switch and the whirring wheels slowly stopped. As he turned around, a look of pleased surprise spread over his face. Nancy Drew, how did you get here? Simple. That jar you just made is Aladdin's lamp. You rubbed it, and I appeared. Dick laughed, then grew sober. I wish we could conjure up a genie to find that china clay pit, he said a bit ruefully. Maybe we don't need a genie, said Nancy. What do you mean? We may have found the leaning chimney, Nancy beamed. Dick gasped. Honestly? I don't know yet. Nancy told Dick what she and her friends had discovered. I'm going back soon to look more thoroughly. With someone who doesn't get hungry every 10 minutes. A boyish smile of hope lit Dick's face as he escorted Nancy to the door. I'll keep you posted on further developments, Nancy promised. Oh my gosh. Hello. You know what I've noticed with a lot of Nancy Drew books? Okay, the title is Mystery in Manhattan. But maybe it'll be like right at the end of the chapter. They'll say, oh, we're going to Manhattan. There's like no Manhattan in the chapter. A lot of the times the title is just like only comes about at the end of the chapter. You know what I mean? So it's kind of misleading because we're not in Manhattan yet, are we? Am I right or am I not wrong, Maggie? Yeah, I mean, I like this chapter. I like it a lot, but there's no Manhattan in it so far. After dinner that evening, she accompanied her father to his study on the second floor. You're up to something, young lady, he said shrewdly. What is it? Nancy told him of her visit to the strange enclosure. Mr. Drew frowned. I don't like the sound of it, he said. Strikes me as a good place to stay away from. Bess agrees. But Dad, Nancy protested, her blue eyes growing large with emphasis. There may be a valuable pit of china clay around there. If I don't go back, I'll never find out. Okay, but take Bess with you. If it's inside the fence, the owner probably won't want to sell the clay anyway, Mr. Drew reminded his daughter. Well, look around if you wish, but be careful. Don't go there alone. Thank you, Maggie. All right, she promised. And Nancy does keep her promises. Carson Drew took a paper from his pocket and said, I have a clue too. It's about the ungs. It's about the Engs. What is it? Nancy asked eagerly. I received a phone call from San Francisco this afternoon, Mr. Drew explained, and my secretary wrote down this report. He settled back in his chair and continued. It says that when the Engs arrived in San Francisco on their trip to the United States, they were met at the dock by a man named David Carr, or Kerr. It could be either one. I'm going to go with Carr. Carr was sales representative for the West Coast Trading Company, a San Francisco importing house. Mr. Drew went on. He and Eng Moy apparently were acquainted as the result of business dealings. When the Engs left San Francisco on their tour of United States pottery plants, Carr went with them. Does the report mention what David Carr looks like? Nancy asked. No. The report says there doesn't appear to be any photograph or description of him available. Even the officials of the important company, even the officials of the importing company can't furnish any clues. It seems that Carr did practically all his work for them in China, contacted them by mail. Then, about the time he met the Engs in San Francisco, he dropped out of sight. Maybe Carr has something to do with the Eng's disappearance, Nancy speculated. Could be, her father agreed. He put the report away. Anyway, it's a clue to work on. As Nancy pondered, she glanced idly at a New York City newspaper which lay on her father's desk. Suddenly, a small black headline caught her eye. She picked up the paper and scanned the story, then read it to her father. It described a robbery that had taken place in New York. An ancient Chinese tea jar dating from the Sung Dynasty, or Sung, I don't know, I'm going to go with Sung, had been stolen from the delivery truck of the Sen Yung Oriental gift shop on Madison Avenue. That's the place where Mr. Townsend bought the vase for his wife. The one stolen during the party, Nancy exclaimed. I'll bet there's some connection between the two robberies. She decided to put in a long-distance call to the gift shop the following morning and find out if the thief had been arrested. He may be the same person who stole Mrs. Townsend's vase, Nancy cried excitedly. Mr. Drew smiled. Why not call the New York police tonight, he suggested. I'll do it for you if you like. In a few minutes, he had the desired information. The thief was still at large.
Are we going to go visit Aunt Eloise?
How would you like to go to New York and talk to the owner of the gift shop yourself? Mr. Drew suggested. You'll get more information that way. Besides, you'll be able to spend a few days with Aunt Eloise. It's a deal, exclaimed Nancy as she hugged her father. She had put off visiting her father's sister, Miss Eloise Drew, for far too long. I'll catch the morning plane if I can get a reservation, she decided. Fortunately, when she telephoned the airport, she was able to get a seat. Then she wired her aunt, telling of her time of arrival. She slipped into bed with her head full of anticipation. New York always held a thrill for her. What, she going all by herself? Oh, goodness. Nancy was awakened the next morning by a small, cold nose sniffing her hand. She sat up to see Togo, her little fox terrier, squatting on her suitcase, his eyes fixed on her anxiously. His stubby tail began to wag while he whimpered pleadingly. No, Togo, Nancy yawned. You can't come. She rose and dressed quickly. 2 hours later, Nancy boarded the plane to New York. The trip was smooth and pleasant. A moment after the plane landed, Nancy saw her aunt, a tall, attractive woman of middle age. I love her too. She's cool. I want an Auntie Eloise. Miss Drew, whom Nancy strikingly resembled, possessed a charming grace which marked her as a woman of unusual intelligence. Eloise Drew knew that Nancy was a lot like her, and secretly this gave her a thrill. Years before, when Nancy had lost her mother, Miss Drew had considered coming to live with her brother. That would have made such a different Nancy Drew world, wouldn't it? They could still have Hannah hanging out. Too many characters. I get confused easily. But the private school where she taught, and in which she had a financial interest, needed her too. When Hannah Gruen had proved so satisfactory, Miss Drew had decided to remain in New York. But she enjoyed her niece's visits immensely. You look wonderful, Nancy, she said as they embraced. How's your father? He's fine, Nancy replied, squeezing her aunt's hand. The luncheon hour was made particularly exciting by the young detective's tale of the stolen potteries. At the end of the meal, Miss Drew readily agreed to Nancy's suggestion that they taxi to Sen Yung's Oriental gift shop. Some time later, their cab swung out of the heavy traffic on Madison Avenue and pulled up before the store. Nancy and her aunt stood outside a moment to admire the exotic and colorful Chinese potteries and jewelry and odd pieces of Oriental bric-a-brac displayed in a large plate glass window. Then they entered the shop. So that was like a pretty long sentence for me. If I was recording that, right? Wait, is this recording? I mean like recording it for an audiobook? I might have to stop a few times and start over. Whoo boy. Then they entered the shop. 3 men, one in delivery man's uniform, were talking at the rear of the store. One of them came forward as Nancy and her aunt entered. Nancy hesitated. The name of the proprietor painted on the display window was Chinese, but the man who confronted her was not an Oriental. "Is Mr. Sen Young here?" she inquired. The man shook his head regretfully. "Mr. Sen Young has been at home ill for the past 6 weeks," he informed her. "Is there anything I can do for you? I'm John Tallow, Mr. Sen Young's partner." "I'm sure you can help," Nancy smiled. "Some time ago, Mr. Townsend of River Heights purchased a lovely Ming vase here. I'd like to find out who sold you the vase." "Mr. Townsend?" the man repeated slowly. "Just a moment, I'll look up the sale in my books." Is this a shady character? He went into an office at the rear of the store. I'll tell you in a sec what's on. He went into an office at the rear of the store. As Nancy and her aunt wandered about, examining the beautiful jewelry and porcelain, Nancy could plainly hear the other 2 men talking. She realized at once that one was a detective. It was evident from their conversation that the delivery man was the driver of the truck from which the Sung tea jar had been stolen. "I didn't get a good look at him," she heard the delivery man say. "I just lifted the jar out of the truck to deliver it when I felt a gun at my back. Then a voice told me to get in the truck and drive away." It's a Nancy Drew movie from 1939, 39, I think. It's my favorite Nancy Drew movie. It's Troubleshooter, the one where they go to the country. Nancy Drew Troubleshooter. Oh, they're in an airplane. This part always makes me dizzy. It's on YouTube if you want to watch it, if you have not, and you like old movies. Oh my goodness. Nancy stepped forward. She apologized for the interruption and explained her interest in the case. The detective told her to ask as many questions as she wished, but there was little that the delivery man could add to his story. "The thief's hat was pulled down and his coat collar turned up," he said flatly. "I was too busy worrying about what he was going to do with the gun to look at him much. I did what he told me to do, left the jar on the sidewalk and scrammed." Nancy was disappointed not to learn more. At that moment, she felt her aunt's hand on her sleeve. "Do come and look at this vase," Miss Drew urged. "It sounds like the one you were talking about." She led her niece to a glass cabinet off to one side of the shop. Nancy stared in amazement at the piece on display. Glazed on jade green porcelain was a Chinese dragon in black and red. The same design she had seen woven into the tapestry in Mr. Soong's home. The one he had said was on his stolen vase. End of chapter 8. What? Oh, this is getting exciting. That was an action-packed crossing state lines chapter. Yeah, I like this one. It's my favorite, I think. This one, and then Hidden Staircase. And then the other 2, I'm not sure. I like those 2 the best. Nancy Drew Troubleshooter, 1939, I believe. Let me check. It doesn't say, but I think it's 39. I think they're all from 38 and 39. I think. So that'll do it for today. Just under 1 hour there. And we will continue in Ultra Day. The next chapter, chapter 9, is called Pursuit. And there's a photo, not a photo, there's an illustration in this upcoming chapter. So that's fun. In the Nancy Drew, the old movies, yeah, Ted is kind of, everyone's kind of funny. They're funny. They're funny movies. Yeah. I'm back into this book. It took me a while to get back into it because I hadn't been reading it for a while, but now we are almost halfway through. So that's fun. Let me look at the year of this one. The original was 1949, and this is a 1967 revision. I can take my glasses off now. Let's see what happens when I turn this light off, because I don't need it anymore. Whoa. Okay, there we go. It's not that dark yet. Oh, man. That is heavy. Okay. Oh, and once it gets a little darker out, I'll put this next 7th day will be available for you to listen to. I really like this one. I haven't read them all. I'm going to do one a day. I try to do one every day, but sometimes I can't. Like I didn't do one yesterday. But I'm going to do all of them because one of the days was missing. It was like a bummer. I wonder if it just fell out, or if somebody liked the second day and took it out, or if it could have just fallen out because the binding on this is really messed up and the cover is missing too. It's got all kinds of like water stains on it too. Bummer. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining me, Maggie. It was fun. It's fun when there's people here. I mean, people can listen to it later because it's saved, but it is also fun to have people there listening in real time. And now I am going to go eat my pizza from yesterday because leftover pizza is the best pizza. Am I right? Or am I not wrong? It's Saturday. Everyone have a beautiful Saturday. Thanks for joining me, Lee. Thank you, everyone. And I'll see you again soon. I don't know when, for the next chapters. Bye.